So you just found out you're going to have meet the teacher night or back to school night, and you're feeling a little nervous. When I first started teaching, I was terrified to speak to adults. I actually became a teacher because I'm really passionate about helping kids, and it comes naturally to me. But talking to adults, I know you may not have guessed it, but I have a really hard time with it. And so I was in complete I was an anxious mess. I had butterflies when I had to prepare for my first meet the teacher night. And I just remember thinking I wasn't quite sure what to expect and what to prepare. Well, thankfully, over the past 7 teacher years, I've had several experiences hosting a back to school night, so much so that I actually had other teachers in my building ask for my meet the teacher night resources that I used, and I ended up actually posting some of them in my community and in my TPT store for other teachers to use, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from them. So today I'm going to be diving into what you should actually be doing to prepare for Meet the Teacher Night and Back to School Night, and how to have a smoothly running night that will impress families. So with that being said, let's dive in.
Hey, teacher bestie. My name's Helena, and I'm the creator of the Present Teacher Podcast. I'm a first year teacher coach, and in this podcast, you are going to learn everything from simple, actionable classroom management, social emotional learning, and teacher wellness strategies. You know that impact you want to make in the classroom? Well, we're going to make it happen here.
So, before we dive in too deep, I want to go a little deeper into my personal story with Meet the Teacher Night. As I mentioned, when I first started teaching, I was extremely nervous about Meet the Teacher Night. I wasn't good at speaking in front of large crowds yet. Ironic, I know, because I'm a teacher, but it's a real thing. And I was super anxious. I was worried what others were going to think about me, maybe that I wouldn't cover everything. And over the years, I've slowly started creating a Meet the Teacher night that is easy to set up and actually impresses many family members. I've actually had several family members over the years reach out to my principal in the first month of school, complimenting me not only on my communication with them, but also on how I hosted Meet the Teacher night and how they felt rest assured that I was the right teacher for their student. And I don't know about you, but that's a huge compliment, especially in those first couple of years of teaching. So, needless to say, as I started creating this experience of Meet the Teacher Night, not just resources, but an actual experience, I became not that nervous anymore because I knew I had everything covered. I had all my resources created and I could reuse them year after year, no matter what theme I changed to. And it only takes a couple of minutes. So today I'm going to be diving into that whole experience and some strategies I have personally used that have helped make strong relationships with my families and have also helped me receive those compliments and those compliments to my principal in regards to my Meet the Teacher night. So, with that being said, let's go to the first step, which is deciding on the mood. So, the first thing you need to do in order to create a positive Meet the Teacher night experience is you need to get clear on what you're going after. Now, Meet the Teacher Night is not about being perfect. Um, Over the years, I found that it's about your intention and setting an intentional tone for the night. So, if you could choose a theme or how you want families to feel when they come into your classroom or during the night, what would that be? Do you want them to feel inspired, empowered, to have respect for you? What is that vibe? Maybe calm. Maybe they're feeling excited. Maybe they're feeling rest at ease. What is the overall vibe, overall tone you're trying to set for the night? And based off of that, we can really start diving into some of the strategies that are going to feel aligned with you and what you're intentionally trying to set up for the night. So take some time to journal or write down some ideas, thoughts, and feelings you would want your families to have. What are some thoughts they might be having? Maybe they come into your classroom and think, wow, this is really put together. Maybe they are thinking, oh my goodness, I would love to have my future kids go here. Maybe they're thinking, oh my goodness, this student or this teacher really cares about my personal student. What is it exactly the thoughts you're wanting them to have as they come into the classroom? The second thing after you've decided on the mood and you've figured out it's not about being perfect, based on this, brainstorm and set some goals. So, for example, maybe you have a goal to reassure families over the night. Maybe you want to start building positive relationships with families and students. Maybe you want to share the essentials without overwhelming them, but you want to start with a strong foundation so they know what to expect without being overwhelming. So, after you've taken some time to really brainstorm and decide on the mood and the overall theme of what you're wanting in your Meet the Teacher night, it's time to decide the format to achieve your goals. Now, do all the families come in at the same time and you present all of the info to the families at once? Or maybe you have open doors where families can come in whenever they can over a 2 hour window. Maybe you have scheduled appointments. Over my 7 years of experience, I've had a variety of different ways that I've interacted with families during Meet the Teacher night. Everything from having virtual during COVID to having people schedule time with me, to having it to where I present to all families at once, to having an open door policy. So get clear on what your expectations are, what'll match the theme you set previously, and what is the expectation from your district or your school. Every year, I've kind of had a different expectation from the school on what they expected us to do. So make sure to check in with whoever it is that runs your school, whether that's admin or maybe your team lead, on what the expectations are for your Meet the Teacher night. And if you don't necessarily have a requirement on what it should look like for Meet the Teacher night, feel free to pick one format that really fits well with whatever tone you're trying to set for Meet the Teacher night. After you've done this, create an interactive flow. So, an example of this could be having your classroom strategically set up so it's very interactive. I like to have it as an experience. I don't like to think of it as something that I'm just going to do a presentation and it's over. I like to have it be very interactive. So my families aren't just seeing a classroom for the first time, but they're actually experiencing it. They're interacting with it in different ways. So a great example of this is by creating an interactive flow. An example of this could be right next to the door, you have families sign in. Maybe you have a sign-in sheet that is required by the district, or maybe you come up with one. And while they're doing this, maybe your students do an activity. So, one activity I've done in the past, and my families have absolutely loved this. I've gotten a lot of feedback from other teachers who have used it as well, is I've actually done a sticky note activity. So, what it is on the whiteboard, I put, I'm feeling blank about going into second grade. I'm feeling about going into whatever grade or this class. And then what I end up doing is I have sticky notes, and the students can pick a sticky note and they can write a word or something that they're looking forward to. If you want to say, like, I'm excited about, I'm feeling how I'm feeling, something like that. And they can write it and then they can put it on the sticky board, on the whiteboard. They can stick it to the whiteboard. The reason I do this is a couple different things. One, it gives the students something to do. I typically have it set up at their desk so they can go find their desk, they can grab a pencil, they can fill out their sticky note and put it on the desk. If I don't have it set up that way, what I can also do is I love having my students have something so they can start interacting with the classroom right away. But I also like, from a primary perspective, I like seeing what writing skills my students come in with. I will notice if maybe the parents write it down for them. I will notice if the student has any reversals. It's really a kind of a quick assessment. I know it's kind of sneaky to see where my students are at, especially at that primary level. So that's another reason why I like to do it. It's also reassuring when students come in and they see all their friends and how they're feeling about the first day of school. And it kind of helps me gauge how this class is and how they're feeling in general about the first day of school. And again, that reassurance. So you can do some kind of activity or have the students do an activity while families are signing in. Then I have them do a tour throughout the classroom. Maybe you have the first area, second area, and third area, and they could be self-led where students have different activities they can do. Maybe if students are bringing their supplies, you can help have them help their families unpack and set up. Maybe you have them interact with the whiteboard. Maybe you have them do different things around the classroom, check out a book before the first day of school, and have a printed out procedure on the checkout process of your classroom library goes. There's all sorts of things you can do. And also maybe after that, and then you have handouts and a Q&A. Another kind of interactive workflow you might have for your Meet the Teacher night, especially if you're presenting whole group or with everybody at once, maybe you have families sign in. Meanwhile, the students are doing an activity, and then you start the presentation. You give a quick tour of the classroom as a whole group, and then you give out handouts, and then you have time for a Q&A. So make sure, however you plan on having your night, think of the tone or that word or that vibe you have in mind on how you expect the night to go and create a flow that works with that or supports that. And you can decide whether you want it to be interactive and self-led, especially if you have more than one person coming in at or a group of people coming in at a time, or if you're going to do a whole group and you want to have kind of a cohesive flow throughout the night. After you've done that, now it's time to prep your classroom. So we've gotten clear on what the theme is, the vibe is in the classroom. Now we've come up with a workflow or a night flow on how the night or the experience of Meet the Teacher night is going to go. Let's talk about prepping your classroom. So the first thing is to set up your classroom. Now, this is something that I mentioned in Classroom Kickstart mini course. This is a program I have that talks about everything you need to set up your classroom. But when you're setting up your classroom, just a quick tip, you want to make sure you keep the flow in mind while you're setting up. A huge mistake I made those first couple years of teaching that honestly led to a lot of disruptive behavior was my room was very sporadic. I would have pencils over here, I'd have stuff over here, and a lot of times my students would be up out of their seats talking to each other because my classroom wasn't set up to minimize disruptive behavior. So make sure to keep in mind that you go through what the flow of your classroom is going to be like and set up those areas intentionally. That's a huge, huge thing I wish I would have done those first couple of years because, again, it minimizes a lot of disruptive behavior when you've purposefully set up your classroom to completely eliminate those opportunities for students to get up and start talking because they're grabbing resources that are just spread out throughout the room. The second thing is make sure to tidy up the room, make sure it looks clean, and make sure to label different areas, especially if you're going to do an interactive tour or self-led tour. Make sure to set up stations for students for the tour if you're doing a whole group or student-led rotations. Make sure to have clear signs if that's what you're going to do. And I like to really set the tone when families come in, so I like to play calming music. Actually, in the last couple of years, I've had a Harry Potter classroom, so I like to play Harry Potter music in the background on my Promethean board. But make sure to set the stage and set the vibe or the ambience by picking out some good music. And then you can set up your presentation, especially if you're doing a whole group, and then have students' names on desks or let them choose a friend to sit with on the first day of school to ease anxiety. So I've done this in years past, especially with the primary kids. It's very easy for families to be nervous about the first couple days of school, especially the kids as well, especially in those younger years. So what I end up doing is when I have them write their sticky note, I have them write down their name and some friends that they want to sit next to, or one friend they want to sit next to, and I will have them sit next to that friend during the first week of school, just so they can feel rest assured that, hey, I'm nervous for my first day of school, but I have my buddy sitting next to me, and so I'm even more excited to start off the school year. I don't let them sit there the whole year because how many of us know friends like to talk and kind of get out of hand sometimes, but for the first week, I don't mind having my kids sit next to their friends, especially when we're really building that sense of community and relationship in the classroom. And then after the first week, I start assigning seats based off of the dynamics in the classroom. So after that, set up a sign-in area. You can have treats here, you can have the activity, whatever it is, but make sure you've done all of this to prep your classroom to set up the classroom. So now that we've talked about different ways to prep your classroom and to set up the classroom, let's talk about creating easy to understand materials, because the reality is there's probably a lot of information you want to get through to families, but you want to do it in a clear and concise way so that they're not feeling overwhelmed and there's no confusion. So here are some things that I have used in the past that I highly recommend you have for Meet the Teacher Night. In the past, I've actually made a whole Meet the Teacher Night slides and handouts that walk through these exact things. So if you want to grab those, make sure to check out the description. I have over 5 different themes currently. I might be adding more very soon. So I can kind of match your classroom theme, because here in elementary, we're all about our classroom themes. So here are some different things I recommend having. So first, let's talk about the slides. If you are doing a Zoom video, or if you are doing a whole group presentation, or maybe you want to have different centers or rotations set up, and you want to have one slide set up in different spaces around the room, that's another great way to have people interact with the materials without you having to do a whole group presentation, especially if you have families coming in sporadically or whenever they want, like a walk-in theme. So here's some slides. First, I recommend having a welcome slide and then meet the teacher slide. So this could be facts about you, things they should know about you, your credentials, what you like to do. I like to do a fun fact about me, where I'm from. Then contacting the teacher slide. In this slide, I really like to emphasize what my expectations are and what the expectations are for family communication. Will I be available on Class Dojo? Do I have an email? Do I have a cell phone? What are my office hours? And if I am reached outside of those office hours, when can they expect an answer back from me? I like to do fun facts about the teacher slide. I like to do a classroom schedule slide. So this is really important if family members are planning maybe a doctor's visit and they're not quite sure what time to take them out for a doctor's visit or a dentist visit really fast appointment. So I like to give them the schedule on what roughly is going to happen in the classroom so they know what to expect, and they know, hey, if they come in at this time, they'll be working on this. I also like to have a homework policy slide. What are the expectations for homework? How often is homework going to be sent? What is the expectations for homework being turned in, and the late policy? And then finally, the classroom expectations slide. What are students expected to do? What happens if they are not following the expectations in class? How are you going to work with families to ensure that students are following the expectations in class? And what is the next step in the process if students aren't listening or following said expectations? So those are the slides, if you are presenting, that I highly recommend you check out. Now, let's talk about if you're not presenting, or maybe you are, but you want a handout version of the slides, or you just want to give out a packet at the end of the night that has all these. Here are the things I recommend having if you are not going to do a presentation. Again, I have these resources already made, so make sure to check out the resources, even if you want, or the description, even if you want to look at what I've created for some ideas on what I recommend having. That way, if you create your own, or if you're curious exactly how I set up certain parts of it, the letters and stuff, you can check that out. That goes with the slides too. So first thing I recommend is doing a welcome handout, welcoming them to the class, and then having a meet the teacher section in your handout. So a little bit about you, just like the slides say, and then contact me section. In this section, you're going to say how they can contact you, what hours you'll be available, and for your office hours, and then how soon you'll respond to them if you are reached outside of office hours. This is a huge boundary that I wish more new teachers and first year teachers, myself included, would have done early on, because it can save you a lot of burnout from setting good boundaries like this. Next thing, fun facts about the teacher section, and then having a class schedule section, and then a homework policy section. Again, will you be giving out homework? How often? What are the expectations? What's the late work policy for that? And then the classroom expectations section. Okay, so that's all of the materials I highly recommend you create for Meet the Teacher Night, whether that's just the slides and then just the handouts or both. Again, if you want reference on what that could look like, make sure to look in the description because I have plenty of examples that you can check out for that. Now, now that we've created those understandable materials that get to the point and clearly outline all the important information your families might need to know for Meet the Teacher Night, let's talk about the last step, which is to follow up. Now, I love to send a thank you or a class dojo message after, and I specifically like doing this little hack. I like reaching out and thanking them, but I also like to reference something specific I loved learning about that student. So let's say it was a walk-in policy. I met one of my students and I really got to know that so and so is really passionate about soccer. I played soccer for 15 years. I'm gonna have a little piece of paper with everyone's names written down. And I'm going to write one specific thing I loved learning about that student, and I'm going to reference it when I follow up and thank them for coming to Meet the Teacher Night. Maybe another student, I talk to the family and I learn they're really passionate about math. And so when I thank them for coming and I do a follow-up, I can then reference, I love learning about I'm so excited to work on math or learn more about math with such and such student. So make sure to follow up. This is a nice touch and shows the families that you're not going to be reaching out just for when you need help or assistance or something serious happens at the school, but also for the positive things. So taking that extra step is kind of the cherry on top to a great experience for your families and your students. Okay, so that wraps up everything that I like to do to prepare for Meet the Teacher Night. And again, most of this stuff I've actually already created, and it's nice because it doesn't take that long to set up. It does maybe the first time once you've kind of got, sit and think about your theme and the flow, and then you have your resources. But once they're made, you can reuse them year and year again and kind of refine them and really create a process that works for you and your personality. So let's do a quick recap on all the steps to creating a great Meet the Teacher Night experience. So the first thing I shared about my personal story about how I went from a frantic disaster to getting compliments sent to my principal for how amazing my Meet the Teacher Night was. First thing after that, I talked about deciding on the mood. What is the mood or the theme you're planning on for the night? The third thing, we decided on the format, either by asking your admin or leaders on what the expectations are or setting your own based on the mood you're trying to set for the night or the goals. Then we talked about how to prep the classroom, how to prep the space, how to set up the different areas in your classroom, and then we talked about how to prep materials. I talked about which materials I personally use in my classroom and the ones I've used and other teachers have used from me that have worked for their Meet the Teacher Night that really help you have clear communication with families without overwhelming them, but letting them know exactly what to expect. And the last step is to follow up. Following up with each family about how excited you are for the year and something specific you're looking forward to for that student shows that you care personally about each student and you're going to be reaching out and sets that tone. You're going to be reaching out for a positive relationship with them, not just when you need something, but it's going to be a back and forth communication kind of year. So, that's everything on Meet the Teacher Night. I know that was a lot of information, but if you found this resource, this week's content helpful, I would love if you could subscribe or join wherever you're tuning in from. I would really appreciate it. And then comment down below or send me a DM. What is one strategy that you're going to use for Meet the Teacher Night, or what's your favorite strategy I mentioned? If you want to learn more about classroom setup, I have several free resources and paid resources that I would love to share with you if you want more info on what my process and the process that my coaching clients or the teachers I coach go through to set up for the school year. So the first thing is, if you are looking for more free tips, I highly recommend you check out the Classroom Setup Guide. This is my ultimate guide on everything you need to know about setting up for an amazing school year, not just how to make your classroom look cute, but the practical as well. I can't tell you That first year, I focused so much on the cute that when the school year started, I felt like I was months behind because I didn't focus on the right things. So it's my passion to help new teachers set up with the right things so that way their first year goes smoothly and they actually get a couple weeks ahead. So, in this guide, I answer the top 10 questions I get about setting up your classroom over the summer. So make sure to check that out. And I link to additional podcasts and YouTube videos. So if you want a further explanation than what I wrote down in the guide, you can reference those for more info. The second thing I highly recommend you check out is wherever you're tuning in from, I have a ton of content now on classroom setup. So make sure to tune in wherever you're joining from because, like I said, I have well over a dozen resources now, weeks of content that specifically talk about setting up for the classroom. If you want to take it a step further and you want me to have done for you resources and give you what I've used and dozens of other teachers have used to set up their classroom, I recommend checking out the Classroom Setup Bundle. This is a bundle that has all the resources that I use to set up my classroom to make it a smoothly ran year. Everything from Meet the Teacher Night to classroom management resources, everything you could possibly need to set up your classroom. And what I love about this is there's 5 different themes. As of now, I might be adding more, but I have things like a beach theme, an ocean theme, all sorts of different themes to really match your classroom because I can't tell you how many times I found a cute or very reliable resource, but they don't match my theme and it's kind of mosh posh and I just like cohesiveness. So make sure to check that out. The next step, if you want to take it a step further, you kind of have the resources figured out, but you want the strategy. How do I plan out the first couple weeks of school and the couple weeks after so that way I'm constantly ahead and I'm not falling behind on planning time? How do I get ahead on my planning over the summer? What does it look like to set up my classroom to minimize disruptive behavior? How can I have strong classroom management from day one of teaching? And if you've taught in the past, maybe you've heard that you have had a hard time with classroom management. You really want to focus on that this year. We have a whole section inside Classroom Kickstart mini course that talks about classroom management. So make sure to check that out. So, Classroom Kickstart mini course is my program that helps walk you through everything you need to know about setting up your classroom in just 4 weeks. The whole idea is I don't want you spending your entire summer doing this. I want to help you set up your classroom in the shortest amount of time possible to get ahead as quickly as possible so you can spend the rest of your summer by the pool, sunbathing, traveling, whatever it is you do. But we talk about classroom management, we talk about planning, we talk about grading, we talk about how to have strong family communication and everything in between. So, if you want the practical strategy behind everything, I definitely recommend checking out that program. Every summer, I have dozens and dozens of teachers join us, and I absolutely love this program because it's literally wrapped up everything that you need to set up your classroom and start off teaching on the right foot in one bow in one program. So I love doing our summer cohorts every year, so make sure to check that out. So that wraps up everything. As always, remember we are stronger together. So I'll see you in the next one, teacher bestie. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that you were able to take away some value that will help you thrive inside and out of the classroom. It would mean the world to me if you could take 5 seconds right now and leave a review on this podcast. And if you found this podcast especially helpful, make sure to take a screenshot of this episode right now and tag me on your socials to let me know you're listening. As always, remember that we are stronger together with all the love in the world. Helena, aka the present teacher. See you next time, teacher bestie.